So I think I'm ready to pull the engine out of the Gravely and get it stuck in here. I'm not too sure about the tank yet, as I was kind of skeptical in my last couple of videos about that. So I think my best point of action right now is to get the engine in there and see what the heck's going on. I did recently order a low pressure fuel pump that runs on 12 volts to power this. This is how the original pump is set up. This has the governor completely removed out of it. Here's one of the springs, and there would be a big arm that comes out of this shaft right here. And when I did the governor removal, I took and tapped this out, and there's a 1/8 inch fitting run down in there, and then this connector fitting, and then a barb here. Now the problem that I was having when I was running it is, while I can pull a pulse out of here, which will be sufficient enough to run the pump, oil does somehow still manage to get out of here, even though it's in a high enough orientation, and you know it's pretty high up from where it gets flung. It still will come up into this tube here, and I could, you know, run this thing around like this, and oil will pull in there, and you know, it wouldn't be a problem, but I want to avoid that altogether. So what I'll end up doing is just pulling this. I'll unscrew this barb here and cap this off, and then maybe tape over it, or do additional RTV. I had tried extracting it before, and the double-ended male fitting that I have run way down in there was turning. Like, I could see the RTV starting to turn, so I would rather avoid that happening. So I can get a wrench on here and a wrench on here, pull this out easily enough, Loctite RTV the entire thing, whatever, and just leave that there in case I need it for something else. That way I don't have to go into the engine and be invasive and have to worry about getting crap in there. And I'll have to figure something out with this evap system. That's like a canister down there, like almost like a charcoal canister of some sort. Other lines run into here. There's two barbs, and then here's the PCV. There was a hose that ran into that from here, or maybe, yeah, I think there's a hose that ran from here down into here, and then there's a hose that ran from the air filter down into there, or some sort of wacky setup that I'm not exactly sure, because it's been a year since I put this in here. So getting this off should be pretty easy. I pulled the belt off in the last video, so it's just 4 bolts, and this thing will just hop right out. So here this thing is naked, and as you can tell, this was originally, as I had said, a vertical shaft setup, and this is how I was trying to get the belt through, and I had this thing all kinds of retarded setup. But anyways, onto this. I realized that, I don't know what I was thinking, but this does in fact have to be mounted backwards. I was thinking the opposite about the orientation of that for whatever reason. So the torque converter is still going to be on the left-hand side, recoil on the right, and the air filter towards the back, which is kind of unfortunate. I was kind of hoping it would go in there the opposite way, and I haven't yet tried sticking it in there, but it doesn't matter. This has to go in this way. And when I was thinking it was going the other way, which it probably would fit in there, as I had said, I had some people telling me that it won't fit in there. You have to modify the thing because the valve cover will whack into the frame, and you were correct. So I'm gonna have to rethink a couple things here on what I'm gonna do with this thing now. With the valve cover hitting this support here, means that this thing is gonna have to get cut out somehow, or reshaped or hammered in or whatever. So what I'm kind of thinking is, maybe instead of going through all the hassle of trying to bend it, just trying to cut it off as flush as I possibly can. So I'll use the Sawzall, try to get it as flush there, and maybe try to get it maybe a little bit shorter. I might be able to find something to sleeve into it, and just moving this over to the right side over here. So instead of it being centered, it would be on the right, and there'd be nothing on the left. It shouldn't need any additional support here in the center because it has the support here, it has support here, and it'll have the support there. You're not bouncing on it too hard or whatever. And if it does become a problem, I could always add an additional gusset up here somewhere towards the tree. So just for shits and giggles, I'm going to take this thing around the other side and spin it around and shove it in there just to see how it'll look. Now, it's really kind of unfortunate that this doesn't fit in here like this, that it rotates the opposite direction, because this is a near perfect fit. If I were to remove that, it would fit in there. No frame modifications required whatsoever. I just have to make new mounts for it, and I'd be good to go. But fate was not kind to me, I guess. So I'm going to have to go ahead and, like I said, remove that stuff. So I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do there. So the engine is in the frame now. I cut that piece out, and unfortunately it's too short to be used as another support piece. I mean, even vertically, it's still half an inch short of the frame. Maybe on the very tip it's pretty close, but at this point it's useless. So this is scrap now. It's too heavy to use as exhaust either. So I got this thing in here. I had to modify the spark plug cap, wire cap, whatever, a little bit. And as you can see, there's a hole there in the top, and actually goes all the way through. So I'm going to have to RTV that shut, or rewire the cap with a different style that has the wire come out the side or whatever else, or I don't know. But what I'm concerned about now is this torque converter. I tried lining it up on here the way that I would ideally like it, which would be something like, it's going to be hard to do one-handed, something like this. Now you can probably already see what's wrong. That's how it's spaced. The jack shaft hits the fins, the cooling fins up there, which is not very good, and I'm so close to getting it into a hole. Like, it'll line up there, but it won't line up over there. So that leaves me with a rotation down to the next lowest position, which is here, and that actually gets it pretty close. The holes are just about lined up. I got to go up a little bit more, and the cooling fin there, as you can, or not the cooling fin, but the support fin on the torque converter is hitting the oil cap here. And as you can see, I already cut off the gripper on that because there's two on here. I don't really need them, and it was hitting the support. I was hoping that this thing would just slide in there, but it doesn't. So I pretty much have one of two ways of mounting this. If I'm fairly confident that that support there on the jack shaft will work, cutting that out and notching it, that might be the better option. It puts the chain fairly low, but it's not super high either, going back to the sprocket. Or if I'm fairly confident in my grinding skills, to get it to go down. Actually, that wouldn't even work technically, because the torque converter holes are in the center of the engine mounting holes. So it'd have to go down, which would either cut into the jack shaft or into the oil fill right there, which taking that out is a lot harder than doing this. So it seems like cutting that support right there out is probably going to be my best bet. Now, the way that this is molded, as you can see how the supports are set up, there's three right there, there's one on either side, and there's one up there, and that's because that's where all of your forces are acting on the support here. So cutting that out may affect the longevity of this back plate here. I do actually have it modified on the 212 over there, just a little bit. I think I cut one out, or I cut part of one out, or something like that. Unfortunately with this I would have to cut the entire thing out. So, but that has held up fairly well, even though it's only a fraction of the horsepower of this engine. It has held up very well. It hasn't had any problems. And another concern that I'm thinking of is the placement of the sprocket. With the engine out this far, the sprocket would line up with the outside of the frame right on the edge, and that'd be very difficult, as I had said earlier, because I'd have to rethink my chain guard and everything else. So I have that jack shaft ordered that I could replace this one with. It would come all the way out the side and out, and I could put it virtually wherever the heck I wanted to put the sprocket in line with whatever. But this will be cut out, so this will be weaker. It'll have forces on this part here that isn't reinforced, so I would have to possibly add a vertical support here with a 5/8 bearing in the end of it to help support the jack shaft fully. I wouldn't have to put any lock collars on or anything if I put lock collars on either side of this plate, so it wouldn't be too terribly difficult to do. So I have some things to think about in terms of this. I'm finished for the night, so let me know what you think about what's going on here, and if you have any ideas or experiences with mounting a torque converter backing plate onto something like this. There are other options where I could make a jack shaft and size a belt, run it through there, but this is the easiest option. I'm fairly happy with the setup on those because you can virtually just 4 bolts and the throttle cable and the gas line, and the entire assembly slides out. So So yeah, I guess. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Bye.